and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. The first item on tonight's agenda is the consent docket. We have items 1A and B. Do either of those need to be pulled or addressed separately?
I have a couple of questions that I need to ask.
Okay, go ahead.
We have two vehicles purchased by the police department for nearly $57,000. I thought those type purchases were to be made out of a special fund which they draw on.
They are out of the special fund, Mr. Shirey. These are actually out of the general fund.
Yes, sir.
And these were not purchased from the special revenue fund because they're not part of that program. These are not patrol vehicles, but they're for our chief and deputy chief. So we felt it was more appropriate to purchase them through the general fund, which was where they were budgeted. And
I'm sure you did.
Fund. Yeah.
But then in other words, this pro fund that you're calling it?
The special revenue fund.
Special revenue fund. What is purchased out of that?
Those are we use that fund for the patrol equipment, so this would be equipment that's used actually by the patrol officers, not our chief and deputy chief.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions on the consent docket?
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Are you using your mic tonight?
Yes.
Is it on?
Yes.
Not working.
Okay, do we have a motion for the consent docket as a whole?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, please post your votes. Item 2 is called to the public. If any member of the audience wishes to address the council, please step forward to the podium. First, state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, City Councilmen and City Councilwomen. I guess that's how I address you, but I'm Kent Schellenberger. I live at 7812 Northwest 33rd Street in Bethany. I bring you greetings from Bethany Public Schools, and I am talking in regards to item number 15 on your agenda. I respectfully request the consideration of this item. For the better part of about 2 years, I think, John, you and I have been talking in regards to, if you head west on 50th Street and look off to the south, you'll see a water holding tank or a water tower, I guess would be the descriptive statement. It is painted in the former years, probably 10 years ago, it was painted white. It does have some bleed through and some just years of use, and I guess water being stored in there or whatever the cause, I don't know. It does have Bethany Broncos. It has our state championships listed. We are asking that the city, first of all, we ask that the city repaint this. A few years ago, city manager stated that they did not have a way to paint that. I think was what the conversation that we had at the time. So then after subsequent conversations, we decided that if we contracted with a painter, that would the city be able to go in half with us on that. We do have a bid for around $10,500. I understand that the docket says it would be a $5,100 cost to the city. On behalf of Bethany Public Schools, we would fund the remainder part, so that would be a little bit more than half that Bethany Public Schools would fund. We do have a painter that will go out and paint this water holding tank or water tower. He has given his workers' comp. He's provided his liability insurance. And also yesterday I gave a quote to City Manager Sugar, but I understand as we have to follow, you have to post a certain amount of days in advance. The school district has entered into an interlocal cooperative agreement with the city, and we are requesting that you respectfully look at this and maybe paint the water tower. I will say that on a given Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there are numerous people that travel east and west on 50th Street. whether it's the Little League football, softball, middle school football, middle school softball, high school softball, and then Southern Nazarene on the weekends from the months of middle of August all the way through the middle of November. I would just say you have numerous people, patrons that visit this area out there, and right now the water tower needs repainted. So thank you for your time and consideration of agenda item number 15.
Thank you. Any other members of the audience wish to address the council?
Good evening. My name is Renee Henry, and I am at the new Arbuckle Mountain Fried Pies at 6213 Northwest 39th here in Bethany. The location was there, but the proper management wasn't. So the original owner took it back and asked me if I would manage the location. And so we're here, we're excited, and we just ask for your support. We have the fruit pies, the breakfast pies, lunch pies, like Polish sausage and potato, bacon, egg, and cheese. You name it, we almost have it. And what we would love to do, we would love to really be a part of Bethany. We would love to support the schools, any type of fundraisers, and do the school colors. We'll do the crimson and cream, which would be cherry and vanilla. So we're excited, and we hope that you guys will support us, and we hope to make you proud. And we're proud to be in Bethany. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address the council? Hearing no more, I will move on to item number 4. I'm going to skip on the agenda a little bit here. Item 4 is consideration and possible approval of plans and specifications for the Bethany Hospital addition re-roof and internal demolition, and authorize staff to solicit bids. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is both on the general fund, or the general government, the city council agenda, and then also the hospital agenda. But Jerry has finished the work on the plans and specs for this project at our hospital facility. This work will include re-roofing the old emergency surgery center addition and include an internal demo of that facility. The walls will stay, but basically all of the interior walls will come out. It will be a shell, so when UHS decides to do something different, they will have a nice clean shell with no asbestos, which has already been removed, and the mold will also be remediated. Jerry was kind enough to come tonight and be here to answer any of your technical questions. So, but if you have no technical questions, Mayor, then I'm satisfied that Jerry has done a great job, and we can just authorize the specifications, and we'll get going and get that work completed.
Okay. Council, any questions of staff or our architect, Mr. Lester? If not, I would entertain a motion on item 4.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion for approval of the plans and specs.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Please post your votes.
Thank you.
Jumping around once again, I'm going to move to item 15, which is consideration and possible approval of a interlocal cooperation agreement with Bethany Public Schools to repaint the water storage tank. John?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I think Dr. Schellenberger described the work very well. We typically don't paint this type of water tank, but this is kind of an advertisement for Bethany schools and also the city. We have a great school, and I'm glad to support this item. I would ask that you approve the interlocal agreement as presented. We have received their insurance certificates, so if something happens, we're protected. But the contractor will be responsible for all the work.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make some more for approval.
Okay. We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any questions or discussion?
What fund does this come from?
It'll be from our Public Works Fund.
What did the city engineer have to say about the condition of the outside of it, and did he recommend painting it?
No, the surface doesn't need painting for to protect it from the weather. It's just appearance sake. That type of material doesn't really need to be painted like a steel water tank. It's gunite, or some people might call it gunite. It's a form of concrete, but the tank is in good shape considering its age.
So it's purely aesthetics that would be painting it?
Yes, yes.
I have a question. In light of the new signage laws that are in effect or going into effect that we've received information this past week about, and in light of our ordinances needing to be updated also to that effect, my question is, are we setting a precedent here that if we allow it for, we have more than one school district in Bethany. If we allow it here, are we going to be opening up the door to have to do it and have to pay for the same thing in other locations? This has nothing to do with who it is, it has to do with what it is. So if we allow this school to now come in and paint this tank, how many tanks do we have in this city?
Well, we have 2 tanks like this one, and the rest of them are
Okay, so we
elevated
start
tanks.
with the tanks, and then what's it gonna be next? What structure in the city is it gonna be next that we're gonna have to allow to be painted? So I don't know, Mr. Davis, is this something that falls under signage that we should be concerned with, or am I blowing smoke?
Under signage, did you say?
Because it's a sign, I mean.
It is. It certainly is. It's a descriptive sign advertising a governmental entity, which the school district is. And typically those are not regulated government-type signs or not.
Okay, so we let Bethany do it now, and then Putnam City's gonna come, and then SNU, and then SCU, and so, you know, actually, if we're gonna allow it, why don't we have all 4 of those schools painting that tower, and not have to have the city pay anything? I mean, that's just an idea. I mean, I know a lot of work and conversation has gone into this to get to this point, but, I mean, it's just a thought.
I might add that some of what we're talking of the tank and how many.
Plus part of the ward that has a school district in it, and I see that this has little, if any, you know, merit for the city of Bethany to paint it, because there's people that are going to be paying for it who have no direct linkage to this particular project. I'm talking about the 4 3/4 square miles of the.
Everyone in Bethany's got an idea in it, Bill. There's not millions, there's thousands of people in Bethany that don't have kids in schools. So what's wrong with doing this to help the city have something pretty out there instead of a rundown, rusty old?
There's absolutely no rust in that tank because it's all concrete or gunite.
What difference does it make?
It makes $505,100 difference to me.
And is that terrible?
Well, I don't know. I think every dime that this city can save and put towards police cars and fire department engines is better off.
Well, I personally think it's a great call, and if Putnam City wants to get in on it, I think it's great for them too.
Well,
I don't see, we've got to loosen the strings, Bill. You are against anything that spends a dime on anything that makes the city look pretty. I'm sorry, but you are. And that's wrong, guys.
if it
We are
benefited
here
the
to
whole city, I would not be
distribute
that
money
way.
to where the money's supposed to go.
It does not benefit the majority of the
It
taxpayers
does
in this
benefit
town.
the city. You're absolutely 100% wrong.
Well, I think the
Well, I
value-
disagree. Oh, go ahead.
I
Randy, I'm
just want to
sorry.
say, I think the value of all of our schools transcends district lines. The value of the Putnam City Schools obviously encompass our city limits, and the value of the Bethany School District, it transcends not only all 4 wards, but it transcends into the Oklahoma City area too. Everywhere a transfer student comes in, that is where the value lies. Now, if it's $5,000 we're worried about, I tend to agree with Tom or Councilmember Ray that I'm not sure we can put a value on the value of our school district and the perception that it beholds. So I just want to say that our, our values are more than monetary on this particular thing.
Absolutely.
Well, I think the only school that it truly makes sense for is Bethany Public Schools, and the fact that it literally sits at the middle school football field there. It appears as the billboard as you enter the complex. If SNU wants to do something, they have a football stadium there that they can put all sorts of banners and billboards and advertisements on. And Bethany Public Schools utilizes that field, so that is their opportunity to brag about their state championships, whereas they don't have a field like SNU would have or does have to do that bragging. And I think it makes that stretch of 50th, it brightens that area up right there as you enter the ball complex. And it's not kids that are just going to Bethany. Across the street, the Tri-City complex there are hundreds and hundreds of people a week that travel in and out of there. And that's not just during football season. That's almost year-round that there's people traveling up and down there and seeing that. So I think it's a fantastic idea, and for $5,000, I don't know that we could get a better look out of that.
And any time that we have a championship, football, baseball, whatever it may be, any sport, we need to advertise that for them and let the kids and the people of Bethany know that we're proud of them. And I think it ought to be displayed loud and strong and clear. I don't see a problem with it at all. And for $5,000, if that's going to break this city, we're all in trouble anyway.
Well, I think 5,000 is just pocket change or walking around money.
Yeah.
What is the total cost?
I was told that
What
once.
is the total cost to do the
10,000.
job?
5140.
10,500.
What's the question? What were you asking?
What was the total cost
Well,
to
I
do?
think it was 10,000.
I mean, it's not just 5,000, is it?
Well, I think it was 10,500. The price that the city manager and I agreed that the city would pay is 5,100, I believe. I don't know how many of you have driven out past there in the last year. It may not do anything for it structurally, it just looks pretty bad. And as a taxpayer, as a citizen, I don't live in the Bethany School District. At some point, I will not be the superintendent of Bethany Schools, but it looks pretty bad. And I'm, as a taxpayer and a citizen, if that's what we want our property to look like, then so be it. But it looks pretty, and I have pictures of it to show you if you haven't seen it. And I'm embarrassed as a taxpayer how it looks because people realize it's in Bethany.
And for some people coming in and out, that may be
the only thing
literally
they
the
see.
only thing they see. If they come down out of Oklahoma City on
Anytime,
Council, turn on
wherever.
50th, that is their only perception of what Bethany is.
That's exactly right.
All right, I'm going to call the question. Please post your votes.
You might explain about Tom's voting, how we're gonna handle that.
Okay. And obviously, Councilmember Ray sitting up here tonight, and his voting light is down here. He and I spoke before the meeting and discussed if we were going to leave his light on green because he didn't think there was anything he was going to be voting against. If he chooses to, he can let John know, and John can change that vote. Otherwise, that's how he's voting tonight. So just clarification on that. All right. I'm going to move to item 5, which is consideration and possible action to conduct an executive session to review the performance of the municipal judge, city manager, municipal attorney. This action is authorized under the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act 25 OK Statutes 307B1. First motion, should there be one, would be whether or not to enter into executive session.
Can we do 5 and 6 since they're both at executive session?
Yes, absolutely. We can take item 6 with it.
I'd make a motion for 5 and 6.
Okay. For executive session, do we have a second? Okay, please post your votes for executive session. Thank you. We will recess here in the regular chambers and be as brief as we possibly can. Regular session. I apologize for that taking a while and that being taken out of order, but felt it important that we get that item discussed and over. Okay, so no further action will be taken on item 5 and no votes were taken in executive session, and the same will be true for item 6. Item 7 is consideration and possible approval of a 4% COLA for the city attorney, municipal judge, and city manager effective 7/1 of 2015.
I'd like to
Yeah,
make a
Mr. Mayor,
motion
I'd
that we
like to
table that, please.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please post your votes for tabling.
No.
Okay, that tabling fails.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the session and go for the 4% increase.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for approval of the 4%. Do we have a second?
Second it.
Please post your votes.
John, give me a yes. Who did the, wait a minute. wait
So
a
it's
minute.
5 to 3 to 1, so that passes.
Oh, we didn't.
Okay, item 3 is a presentation and update from representatives of MIG Incorporated concerning the progress on the comprehensive plan. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have 2 of our consultants here tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. So, Jeff, take it away.
Hello. Working here. Thank you very much. My name is Jeff Wilcherman. I'm with the consultant firm MIG out of Boulder, Colorado. With me tonight, I also have Phil Spooky as part of our team. He is one of our economic specialists. He may be, I'll have him become a part of the conversation later, but first of all, let me go ahead and get us started. We're here to talk to you tonight about the comprehensive plan. Before I go further, I just want to say thank you again for letting us present tonight. Mayor Taylor, appreciate it, all council members. It is a pleasure to be here, and I do enjoy being with you all, so thank you. For the agenda, we're going to try and take about 10 or 15 minutes, and I'm going to give you a little project overview of where we've gotten to in the last 2 or 3 months. And then we're going to open the floor up for about a 30 to 40-minute discussion as seen fit, and then close with some next steps and close the presentation. So for a project overview, what this is a comprehensive plan measure that we are moving forward on. You'd hired us for that back here in May, and we have started that process to help you to move forward in developing a broad kind of umbrella type of plan that is comprehensive in nature. What does that mean? It means that it's complete. It means that it includes all or nearly all the elements or aspects of something. In this case, all the things that are important to you and your city, the city of Bethany. A lot of times, many times comprehensive plans are structured in terms of many types of elements. These are a few of those types, whether it be land use and city design, transportation, housing, education, cultural and historical resources, community health, city services, permitting, and whatnot. A lot of these elements can be seen as individual things, but what a comprehensive plan helps us to do is it helps us to start to line up all of those different elements and aspects of what help us with our city and begin to think about cross-cutting strategies and items that can help us to make the city work better, improve it, and have all of the different types of practice. Your uniqueness, and as one person had put it, the model city for Bethany is the best possible Bethany. So with all that input, a lot of emerging themes are starting to come out, which kind of help to build the potential plan elements. That list that I showed you earlier that are the chapters of that general plan, they're starting to come out. Historical and cultural character, land use and city design, housing and neighborhood maintenance. Just thinking about housing, for instance, 55% of Bethany is owner-occupied. We may want to ask ourselves, why is that? In terms of your housing stock, and this is looking at it from a county level, Oklahoma County level, 46% of your housing stock is somewhere below 89,500. That's close to half of your housing stock. Next, 80 or 40% is in the median range, and then you have a small amount in the high range, but close to half of it is at a low level. In terms of local and regional economy, you've got major employers such as the universities and the health hospital. You've got local businesses downtown. You've got local and regional economies. These guys are major landholders, and they're going to be players in what we're dealing with. Other major landholders are your schools and education. Bethany Public Schools, Putnam City West. Schools are doing great. That's another huge asset you have. Bethany Public Schools ranks in the 90th percentile. Putnam City Schools, it's a bigger district, but you overlap with them, and they are benefiting and functioning at a pretty good level. They had a dip in 2013, but they're rising back up. Transportation, circulation, and parking. This is a map showing you bike facilities, sidewalks, and buses. Notice the purple, that's your existing sidewalks that you have. In terms of funding and maintenance, per year you have on your budget for about $600,000 a year for 186 lane miles. Or another way to look at it is $3,250 or $600. If you got 2 lanes for a road, it's like $6,500 that you're spending. Just as an anecdotal thought, in my experience in other cities and what we've done, that line item budget per mile is more like around $10,000 to $15,000 that they tend to focus on for that maintenance per year. For your sewer maintenance and funding, currently you spend about $375,000. Is that enough? We need to ask that question. Are we maintaining what we need to? 23rd Street. This particular area in your neighborhood, you've got a lot of low-income families. You have a lot of affordable houses. You have 23rd Street that has the opportunity for revitalization and redevelopment. You also have a bus system, 23rd Street, that comes in, but it stops your neighborhood. Route 23 with OKC is their highest ridden route in all of the city. That has a lot of ridership, so it stops right at Bethany's border and it goes south. With that kind of leverage of them having that much ridership, is it possible for Bethany to think about transit in a proportional way? Natural and cultural resources. Elton Lyon Park, beautiful park. This map shows you where your parks are. The darker, broader stretch shows the coverage and shows access. In terms of level of service, Bethany ranks pretty well in terms of parks per 1,000 people. You're competing with Yukon, and you're almost, you're right up there mid-range to Nichols Hills. You right now fund about $700,000 a year for the 172 acres that you have. Is that enough? We need to think about that. Community facilities, great parks, family friendly. You've got library aspects coming in. You've got a great firehouse, your city hall. You've got great city services and safety with your police and your fire. What's your crime rate tell you? Well, in terms of your abutting neighbors, Oklahoma City and War Acres, you're competing pretty well. But in terms of Yukon, Piedmont, Edmond, and some of your other neighbors, it's a question. Some people say, we got emergency response, it's great. Well, when you look at everything all together, the variations are a little bit not so different. But I can tell you, being in your community, meeting these people, they're great people, and they're focused on your community, and they're approachable. Special district corridors are another aspect of this. Politically, you guys focus and function on at a ward level. What a general plan will do for you, or it could do for you, is you could focus future funding or thinking about putting it in specific areas, building critical mass, thinking about ways to invest smart in a way that can reap better rewards for you. Route 66 is a possibility, 23rd Street, Rockwell, Council, all those things play into this. You also have demographic aspects, median income, trends. Looking at this map, if you look at the center there where that arrow is, that's where Bethany is. I'm just showing you a little bit of the growth of this over time. This is median value. And as you keep moving forward, things start to change, but as you see, there's a lot of things changing around on the outside edge and around the periphery of Bethany. What does that tell us? That's telling us that Bethany's been around a while, and investors and developers and where money is going elsewhere. It's going outward. It's reaching out in the further rings. What are you going to do about that? How do we think about that? How does that position Bethany? We need to think about where we are on that trajectory of our lifespan as a city and how the comprehensive plan can help us to start thinking that way. In terms of development patterns, since 1940, the city's been building out. Again, you see it building out and that center getting wider. Bethany's in that, and development is growing out on the periphery. Why is that happening? We need to understand how the competition, which are the communities around us, are drawing in that kind of investment. Here's just a statistic to throw at you. 9% since 1980 of your housing stock has been added since 1980, whereas all your competition in Oklahoma City, 40% and 47% have included that MSA past 1980. So there's newer housing stock happening all around you. Retail assessments. In terms of leakages, if we're just focusing on some of these other items down here, home centers, drugstores, you've got a serious amount of sales that are happening outside of your community. These are just some aspects of it. We can look at parcels of a land size. These are large land parcels that you have. These are owned by different areas. Now, areas are subject to change. This is focusing on basically land values that exceed your built value. And as you see that, that's very different than this to this. And what I'm trying to tell you is the comprehensive plan doesn't have to be something that changes all of your city. It can be focused on just certain small areas, and it will probably only have impact on small areas of the city for strategic reasons. With that comes potential development opportunities.
It's less do we have cumbersome processes than, or do we have more cumbersome processes than the competition? That's really it, right? It's always going to be a comparative issue. But I can tell you, having not looked at your processes, that I'd be disinclined to, as if I was developing land, and if I was developing housing, if I was developing retail, I'd be disinclined to invest in Bethany. I would. If I had investors' equity at risk, if I had my debt at risk, and if I had my own capital at risk, I'd be disinclined to do it.
Which Tom and I both do, by the way.
I would, it's just not a bet I'm willing to take.
So what factors do we need to change to
That's the right
reverse
question.
that?
That's right. So you have about 8,500, 8,300 housing units in the city, okay? Give or take. Got about 6,300 of those are single-family homes. So 1,700 to 2,000 units are going to be in your multifamily.
Is that 55%, excuse me, is that 55% a low or high number?
It's you know, it's a little low on a national average. It's low. You have a lot of fluctuation after the recession, okay? So you were seeing, you know, numbers come from highs, regional highs in the low 70s, high 60s, down across the board. But for what we would call a older inner ring suburb, just to say post-war development that was built out between essentially 46 and 64 in phase one and then peaked 65 to 75, it's low. You should see a higher number. Okay?
So the reciprocal of that would be we probably have a pretty high number of rental properties.
Well, you have so multifamily is in general going to be synonymous with rental here. Single family is not going to be synonymous with ownership here. That's really the biggest piece. So you've got 6,300 odd single family homes out of about 8,300 units, but a high and fairly unacceptable percentage of your single family stocks have turned over into rental occupied. Okay, so that's a trend. That's a troubling trend. What I wanted to say that would give me pause as a developer, right? And I'm assuming that you want my candid, unfiltered feedback. Okay, so about 4,000 of your 6,300 single-family structures look really bad. Not 4, not 40, not 400, not 1,000, but about 4,000 of your single-family structures look tired. Your average owner can afford a mortgage payment of roughly $200 more than they're paying. Okay? And that $200 more that they would be paying in any other market where the ratio of income to housing value was where it would be in a healthy market, they'd be putting into housing. Right? So you'd like to think that if you've got a savings in an affordable market of $200 a month, $2,500 a year, right, that you put it into paint, new shingles, gutters, downspouts, landscaping, but that's not happening. And it's not that it's not happening, it's that it hasn't happened since 1975. You've got 2 full generations of homeowners, right, still riding on an avocado kitchen put in 1968. You have 4,000 ranch houses, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 1,200 square foot structures that are unmarketable in 2015. They're unmarketable because they haven't been taken care of. You have a very high percentage, a troublingly high percentage of homeowners who are free and clear, right? Much higher than you would have it in other markets. But they don't have anybody to sell to. The product isn't compelling. And the product isn't compelling, A, because it's dated, but lots of markets have dated products. It's because it's dated and those owners have kept what would be in a healthy market reinvestment money into the house and put it into a boat or something else for the better part of 40 years, right? So that stacks up, and that's what you end up, that's why you end up with a $125,000 median housing market. You should, by all rights, be a $199,000 housing market. You should be outpacing Oklahoma City on its western fringe, and you're not, right? You're cheap. You have confused frugality for cheap for 35 years as homeowners. So as a developer, when I look at that, right, I'm thinking, wait a second. This is a community that's not reinvesting in itself. I'm not putting my money at risk. Or maybe I will. Let me look at some numbers. I'm going to pull some ASRI data. I'm going to look at your leakage. I'm going to sort of figure out what your spending patterns are, right? And say, maybe, you know, maybe I'm missing something. Except then, I'm going to come into your town on 23rd Street, and I'm going to look at 23rd in that entrance, and it's terribly unsightly. And I'm going to ask myself the question, why is your entrance unsightly? I was taught that if you want a date at the dance, you got to brush your teeth, comb your hair, and put on a nice shirt. Right? This is all about matchmaking. Right? And so right now, your supply is exceeding demand. Yeah, you have an occasional sale, but your competition has 3 times as many sales and twice as fast. If I run a 400-meter flat out in 62 seconds, and the competition, okay, was at 61 seconds last year, and I worked my butt off all winter long, and I turn in a 59-second quarter mile, only to turn around and figure out that my competition turns in a 57-second quarter mile, right? Because they worked harder. That's what you've got in your housing market. Who's there right now is lower in incomes than it was 5 years ago, than it was 10 years ago, than it was 15 years ago, than it was 20 years ago, and then it was 40 years ago, by any number of metrics, right? And older, okay? That market has a certain capacity, a capacity to scrape and paint, a capacity to clean gutters, okay? We look at, as economists, right? We look at capacity in 2 ways. We look at as the ability to do certain things. My mom can't get in and take care of her roof anymore, so my brother and I do it. But my mom can certainly afford it, right? So there's this combination of financial and physical ability, but willingness. So you've got thousands of homeowners with the ability to put $200 more per month into their homes. They've got the willingness, but they don't have, I mean, they've got the ability, but not the willingness. They're not demonstrating the willingness. As a developer, paying attention to willingness, just as much as ability, right? All things being equal, right? I'm going to go where I can get both. So market tells us a lot about capacity, because who's there is demonstrating how folks act. And where that's revealed is in the resulting condition of the community. Are the lawns mowed? I can't tell you how many streets. Is it Halloway? Halloway is this beautiful oak-lined street, you know? It's just, but it's a roll of the dice as to which house is kept at which standard, on which side, you know, it's very hard to predict, right? On any of the blocks, okay? So the condition tells me something. It tells me, this is telling us about ability and willingness, right? But that physical condition then results in an image. For want of $5,000, not to too harmoniously link to the previous discussion on the water tower, but for want of $5,000, you could redo all of your entry signs into Bethany. Very woeful, small wood frame signs that send very questionable signals to your marketplace. Right? Well, so this image, right? This image is what your market reacts to. The world outside of Bethany reacts to that, and they either come to you and become your market, or they go someplace else. And so you have diminished demand. And as your demand is diminished, while your supply is held constant, you don't have a firm floor in your housing values.
Jeff, let me ask you a question.
Absolutely.
Are we looking like on 23rd Street, you said, the gateway to everything that's going on around here?
That's a sad street.
Oh, yeah, it is. Are you talking about maybe we should go build statues or structures or something to get people's attention when they cross into Bethany? Or what? What, give us a suggestion of what you think.
It's a great question. When people, this is a special community with a special history. You know it, but the rest of the world doesn't know it. And the rest of the world used to know it. It's absolutely crystal clear to me that really between about 1955 and 1978, 79, 80, the world outside of Bethany knew that Bethany was special. Something from about 1980 to about 2000, the community got complacent. And you thought you were special, and the rest of the world would always think you were special, and the rest of the world moved on. They got over you. They built newer housing outside. They changed their investment patterns, right? The economy changed, expectations changed. They diversified. Stock, people, customs, right? And they kept reinvesting. So a really important piece is this marker when you come into town, knowing you're stepping into a special place and letting it stay special for as long as that person experiences it, until they leave on the other side of town. It's got to feel special, right? And so you can see it as a visitor. You can see all of the shadow of that specialness, but it needs polishing. And any developer, any kind of developer a developer is one who puts an idea and capital, sometimes theirs, sometimes somebody else's, at risk. And they're always going to be looking to see, do the folks who are there now love themselves enough for me to love it too? And that question can't be answered yes today. And the market's telling you that.
So you got to spend a little money to make.
You have to spend. What you spend on, you should debate for several months. How much that costs, you should debate, and debate it rigorously. But that you should spend should not be debatable. Okay? And the final point I'd say on that is, it doesn't have to be money. When we work with communities in our firm, we tend to think of time, energy, and money. A developer is okay not seeing money in, that skin in the game, but if they don't see energy and sweat, right? If they don't see sweat equity, that's really then it's game over, right?
And we've got a lot of communities like that.
And it's the sweat equity piece here, I would say. I should probably pause there. I hope that answered your question. Okay.
Charles, I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. I much appreciate your candid demeanor, not candy coating, and just shooting from the hip and telling us what you absolutely feel as an outsider coming in. And I personally, I very much appreciate that and appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Mayor.
I have a question, Charles. Do we need to limit our focus to single-family and improving single-family homes? I hear more and more from people who...
You're not moving folks through the housing system successfully. They're not cashing out and selling for prices that they'd want. They're not finding the buyers they want. As that's occurred, it makes increasing sense for some folks to leave and then rent as an absentee owner. Then your standard occupant quality goes down a little bit each year. Their standards go down a little bit each year. And so it's a series of layered impacts. On your worst properties, you can code enforce them across or above a minimum standards line. The nuance is that minimums can become maximums if you're not careful. So what you want to do is use your code enforcement at the bottom of your market.
Mow the grass.
But you've got lots of folks, probably, due respect to everybody in the room, 30% of the room here, right, could probably use a fresh coat of paint, and we don't need to code enforce that. What we've got to do is find a way to nudge them into the end zone without a code enforcement officer. And so that's a code compliance issue. So on some of our code enforcement officers, I'd give them a 2x4, and some of them I'd give them carrots, you know, and incentives. Right? Does that kind of get to it?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So incentivize painting?
Sure, absolutely. You got a lot of T111 siding out there that, you know, for want of $200 of paint from the new Sears, right, is going to go a long way. You've got in Oklahoma City the NHS there, the old NHS, the Home Ownership Center. That's a superb intermediary for those activities. I'm quite confident that they would be delighted to expand their market and work in Bethany. And so, yeah, you can encourage a lot of that, especially in the middle. One final comment on that. You will not get out by taking a worst first approach, okay?
But taking a what?
A worst first approach. Do not spend all your money, time, and frustration and sweat and tears trying to fix your problems. Don't do that. Take all of your energy, figure out the parts of Bethany that are near to beautiful now and make them better. Do not spend your time fixing problems. All right? Fixing a problem will cost twice as much and take twice as long. Getting somebody who's already on the 5-yard line into the end zone, that's the easiest thing to do, and that's what you want to do. That's how you stretch your money.
Yep.
Okay?
Makes sense.
Another question that I have, I've had a lot of people approach me and says, you know, Bethany has a wonderful school district. Its Bethany schools are in the 90 to 95%. But every time I come out here and look for a house, I can't even find a piece of property to build on. How would you handle something like that?
Can I comment on that real quick?
Absolutely.
What
You're
he's
the
getting
boss.
at is myself.
Competitors are beating you at your own game as becoming or being a part of your city. That's my homework assignment for you right now. Is that fair, John?
Fair enough.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate your attention. It's been a long night already. I don't think we're the only thing on the agenda still. So I appreciate your attentiveness, and we look forward to working forward and helping you put the plan together that you want to put together. All right?
I commend you for the job you're doing, and I don't think we hired you to give us a status quo report. So
Thank you. Thank
give
you,
us a
Councilwoman.
challenge.
Yeah, I think you guys did fantastic. Great job. Super. Give us some good ideas.
Thank you, Councilmember Ray.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, I believe item 8 is the next item on the agenda. It's consideration and possible action on an appeal by Paul Trimmel from an order of city manager declaring the building at 7,400 Northwest 36th Street in Bethany as a dilapidated structure and ordering its demolition and removal. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is back to you. You've had it a couple of different times, but the last time you heard it, you gave Mr. Trimmel a 90-day extension. That was in April, April 21st. His time is up, so he's back tonight to speak to you about his property. I really haven't changed my mind. The home is dilapidated. It's not inhabitable. It has numerous problems. Now Mr. Trimmel has told me that he is no longer interested in finishing the project, but that he is hoping to find a buyer for the facility, for the building. There would be a lot of work to do to make that building habitable, but he's...
B&B Electric.
Yes.
They're the ones that have redone the building at, directly across the street from the Boomerang on 39th
I
Street.
think it used to be a print shop.
Yeah, it used to be a print shop.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones that
Hooper
redid.
Printing.
He's the gentleman that
That did that.
did the construction on
Okay.
that job.
How long have you been in business?
I've been like 14 years
14
on my
years?
own business, yeah.
14?
14.
I have a question for Mr. Trimmel. June 11th, Mr. Sugar prepared a letter and said that he ordered that the place be demolished by June 15th. Now, there's not a date, there is a date on this, of closing, but in all the time that has been spent and all the discussion that we went through in requesting a plan of action, which one of those was reporting to the city on a weekly basis that never got done. And I'm wondering, why did you not begin to try to do what the city's been asking you to do for a very long time And yet you wait till the 9th hour and come back and tell us that you have a buyer, a potential buyer. This isn't signed. I don't see a contract. I'm not sure, since this isn't signed, whether it's a legal document or not. That's an attorney question. But I'm just, you know, I put a lot of.
This is a property you're flipping, and you're gonna do this as you can do it.
I'm not only do flipping, I also do construction for homeowners.
So the flipping is just on the side.
Yeah, well, it's not, it's,
Okay.
if you can call it, if you wanna call it on the side, yeah. But that's what I do. I think 5 months is not a lot to build a new house. I think it's good time. I built a house in 16 in 2 months because I did it in winter, I didn't have any more going on, so it took me 2 months to do it, but now it's the busiest time of the year. That's why I'm asking for the rest of the year.
Well, I'd make a motion that we order it demolished if the sale has not taken place and